Okay, so I'm going to get started by welcoming you guys. Welcome. Nice to see all of you guys. Welcome to everyone online who's joining as well. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this short course with you guys, helping you to get introduced to the teachings of the Buddha. Over the next 3 hours, I'm going to help you to be able to understand the teachings of the Buddha from afar, just kind of like a nice introduction. I'm going to first start with meditation, guiding you guys in a meditation session so you can practice a little bit of his teachings. Then I'm going to teach you what are the teachings of the Buddha and what the teachings of the Buddha are not. Then we're going to take a nice little break. Then we'll come back and I'll share with you the very first teaching of the Buddha. It's called the Four Noble Truths. In 4 simple statements, you're going to be able to understand the problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind, the cause of this problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward of how to completely fix it. Because what the teachings of the Buddha are for is to completely transform your mind in your life to get to the point where you no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated through training the mind, but you need to cultivate the wisdom of how to do that. So meditation is part of it, but there's other things you need to learn too. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you in a way that you can independently verify his teachings. So if you'd like to take a position, either seated or you can also do lying, standing. There's even a walking position as well. I teach these in all the various courses and programs, but for this little intro, you can just sit however you're comfortable. I'm going to do some chanting in order to ease into the meditation. Then once we're in the meditation, I'll provide you some guidance, kind of teaching you and instructing you how to meditate while we're meditating. Then there's going to be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating together. Then we'll come out of that with some more chanting, and that's where I'll start today's class. So if you'd like to join along in the chanting, you're more than welcome to. There's chanting sheets over there on the cabinet. Just keep in mind that this chanting, it isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer. There's none of those kinds of things in the teachings of the Buddha. If you see any of that kind of stuff, it's actually not his teachings. So today we use chanting as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself, where during the lifetime of the Buddha, it was used as a learning tool in order to be able to commit the teachings to memory. So you're welcome to join along in the chanting if you like, and then I'll come back with the guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakava Wat Tung Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusara Oto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to label the thought, observe it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanthang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakawata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Oto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good afternoon to you guys. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. I'm going to introduce you to the teachings of the Buddha, helping you to understand what the teachings of the Buddha are and what they are not. And then after our break, we'll take and look at the very first teaching of the Buddha. I'm going to help you to understand in 4 simple statements. What is the problem the Buddha discovered in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. So in order to first be introduced to the teachings of the Buddha, what I'm going to do is teach you what is an actual Buddha. That way you'll understand an introduction to his teachings and why it is that somebody would be even interested in learning the teachings of a Buddha. As I get started here, I'd like to let you guys know that I'm going to be pausing a few times and opening up for questions. If you guys would like to ask questions, you can do that. And because we're live streaming, if you guys wouldn't mind using the microphones, we have microphones there in the middle of the room and some up here, where if you just get a microphone and press the gray button, the lights will come on. And if you hold this up to your chin, we'll be able to hear you here, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. And then you can keep these microphones with you because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question. And then if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll be helpful so we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then for anybody who's online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like that way. So first, just to help you understand what is an actual Buddha. An individual who is a Buddha, they have actually attained enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. There's multiple benefits to attaining enlightenment, and I'm going to be explaining those to you as we go in our class. But essentially, what you can think about at this point is enlightenment is a mental state that you attain in this life where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You no longer experience anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. This individual who we refer to as the Buddha, he figured out how to get to this mental state on his own without the help of any teachers or any guides. That's the first criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. they then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people. And during their lifetime, countless people will actually get to enlightenment through learning their actual teachings. Then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So this is the three main criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. But there's other criteria as well. For example, an individual who's a Buddha, they have a deep, profound memory, being able to remember countless details about their current life and their previous lives as well. This is actually how they actually get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides, is they accumulate wisdom over multiple lifetimes and they apply it in their last life in order to be able to train their mind to get to enlightenment. Also, they can quickly determine the condition of somebody else's mind by spending time with that person, and then they can offer that person teachings to be able to help them to overcome the challenges that they experience through having not trained the mind. This is one of the reasons why a Buddha is so effective at sharing their teachings, is that they can observe the quality of their student's mind and then help them with teachings that are going to actually help them to progress further on the path to enlightenment. Then an individual who's a Buddha, you guys can't see this 100% that are here at the temple, but what it says is that a Buddha is a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. Whatever it is that they teach, they're also practicing those same things as well. Because a Buddha is wise enough to understand that their students are learning just as much through their spoken words as they are through their actions. So they're actually teaching through their actions as well. So this is what makes a Buddha a Buddha. And we refer to this type of individual as a fully, perfectly enlightened one. The reason why is because if you get to enlightenment, just an average person getting to enlightenment, they're going to have a little bit of baggage still in their mind because they got to enlightenment, but maybe they're doing a certain meditation that didn't necessarily lead to their enlightenment, but they're still doing it just out of maybe respect for their teacher. Where an individual who doesn't have teachers and doesn't have guides, they actually don't keep around extra things like that. So for example, if a Buddha tries a certain meditation and they can see that it's working to improve the condition of their mind, they're like, this is what's leading to enlightenment. So I know this is the path. Whereas if they try a certain meditation and it's not improving the condition of their mind, they will discard it. They will toss it away, where the average student doesn't typically do that. They will continue to retain things even though they didn't necessarily contribute to their enlightenment. So that's why we refer to this type of person as a fully, perfectly enlightened one, because by the time they get to enlightenment, they understand the path inside and out, backwards and forwards, and then they spend the rest of their life illuminating that path, almost like putting lights alongside the path, making it very clear to others what it takes to actually get to this enlightened mental state. This type of person is very rare in the world. The last one that the world's currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. Sometimes you'll hear people tell you that everybody is a Buddha, but the Buddha never said that. That's what people are saying today. The Buddha talked about how rare it is for a Buddha to exist in the world. So the last one existed over 2,500 years ago. So this is what a Buddha is, and we refer to them as a fully, perfectly enlightened one. The teachings of a Buddha are a path to attaining enlightenment in this life through purification of the mind. The Buddha discovered certain pollutions that are in the mind, and he discovered the tools and the techniques to uproot these pollutions and get them out of the mind, so that then you experience this mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. This is a permanent mental state that you can attain in this life, and then you'll enjoy that mental state for the rest of your life, or you can attain it at death as well. But ideally, you would attain it long before death so that you can enjoy that mental state all the way through the rest of your life. By the time you get to enlightenment, as I shared, you'll no longer experience any of these feelings. The causes and conditions that are producing those have been uprooted and eliminated out of the mind. Oftentimes people think that these feelings are being caused by something external. You might think it's your mom and dad that are frustrating you, or your boss is annoying you, or your brothers and sisters are irritating you. This isn't actually true. You're going to be able to see by the end of today's class how it's actually your own mind that's causing these feelings. This is why you can eliminate them. You'll be able to independently verify what I teach you today, because none of the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief. You'll be able to see for yourself that it's your own mind causing these feelings. And the beauty in that is that because it's your own mind that's causing them, you can actually eliminate them. Because if it was other people who was causing these feelings, you'd never actually be able to eliminate them. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you don't experience any of these feelings any longer. You'll have a high degree of focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory, because your mind will be performing optimally. With those pollutions in the mind will lack concentration. It'll lack focus and clarity. But by the time you train your mind and you get those pollutions out, your mind will actually be quite crisp, quite sharp, where you're focused and concentrated. You'll notice that you have deep wisdom about the world around you, wisdom that other people don't actually have. And this is helping you to be able to navigate the world peacefully. You'll notice that you're polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to all beings. That right now you might actually find that to be difficult. There's probably certain people that you like, and you can be very polite and respectful with those people. But these other people over here that you dislike, you probably have a very hard time being polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. But that dislike is actually coming from your own mind. Again, people oftentimes think that dislike is coming from the other person, where in reality it's coming from your own mind. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to everybody, because you're not putting out this bitterness, harshness, and hostility any longer. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming. They're at ease. You have harmony in all your relationships. Where right now there's certain relationships that you have struggles and you have difficulties. That's just because your mind is untrained. Once you train your mind, someone else might be doing something unwise, but your mind won't be affected by it. But in the unenlightened state, you'll be angry and frustrated when people aren't doing things a certain way. So you can get past all of that and transform your mind. Down here, this is the last line. I apologize. We can adjust that projector if we need to at break. Well, what this is actually explaining is the way you get to enlightenment through this purification of the mind is to eliminate something called craving, anger, and ignorance. These are called the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. I'll introduce you to what these are, because at the deepest level of detail, the Buddha's pollutions that he describes, they're referred to as the 10 fetters. What a fetter is during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were someone that they were trying to keep confined to a certain area, like a prisoner, they would put a fetter around your ankle. What a fetter is a shackle and a chain and a ball. And this is how they kept you confined to a certain area. They would just keep you out in the middle of a field, where today we put prisoners in jail cells. So during his lifetime, they would attach a fetter around your ankle. So when he discovered these 10 pollutions, he calls them the 10 fetters, because it's keeping the mind trapped, continuing to experience discontentedness over and over and over again, all the struggles and difficulties. So what you're doing on the path is you're uprooting those fetters out of the mind. You're getting them out of the mind and eliminating them. And just like a prisoner, when you release the shackle off the ankle and that person is now free, the same thing is true about your mind. That when you have these pollutions in your mind and you have these 10 fetters, your mind is all bound up. When you're angry and frustrated and having stress and anxiety, you're not free. But when you get rid of those pollutions, your mind is actually free. So the deepest level of detail is called the 10 fetters. But when we talk about it from a high level, we describe it as the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. So let me introduce it to you here. What craving, anger, and ignorance is. Craving is where the mind is longing, yearning. It's chasing after the objects of your affection. The mind is wanting things to be a certain way. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst that the mind chases and chases and chases. It thinks that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind will chase after that thing. And if it gets what it wants, it experiences pleasant feelings like happiness or excitement or elation, thrill, exhilaration, or euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And now when those feelings are arising, the mind attributes this to something external. When the anger is arising, it feels very uncomfortable in the mind for an unenlightened being. And now they think that anger is coming from something external. So when that anger is arising, they will tend to push people away. You might have done this in your life, where you've pushed away friends or family members out of your life. And you can see that didn't solve your problem, because you still get angry. You still get frustrated. If this person was the true cause of your problem, when you push them out of your life, you'd be peaceful and joyful from that point forward. But you can see that that didn't work. Or the second thing you'll do when you think that the problem is external, not realizing that it's your own craving that's causing this, is you'll tend to be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And you might actually think it's the other person who's causing that, but it's actually coming from your own mind. Or the third thing you'll do is you'll tend to put your expectations on people and try to pressure them to do things your way. And people might actually be doing this to you too, where they're pushing you away. They're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they're putting their expectations on you and trying to control you. So it's this craving which is causing that anger, that craving, wanting things to be a certain way. So if it's sunny outside, you get really happy and excited about that. Well, if there's no sun, you'll be angry and frustrated. Or if your bank account balance is up here, you'll get really happy and excited. But if it goes down here, you'll be sad or angry or frustrated. What the mind's doing here is it's craving permanence. It craves for things to be permanent, when in reality, you live in an impermanent world. Everything around you is constantly changing. But the mind craves permanence, and it can only be happy when your bank account balance is here. So when it goes down here, it gets frustrated or angry or irritated. Or if you're in a relationship, you get really happy and excited when you're together. But when you guys are no longer in a relationship together, you get sad or angry or frustrated because the mind's holding on and craving permanence. We're going to go into more detail on this when we get to the Four Noble Truths. But just as a summary, this craving, this longing, yearning is what's producing the anger, because the mind's craving permanence and it can't get that because it lives in an impermanent world. And where this craving and anger is coming from is referred to as ignorance, but I tend to use the phrase unknowing of true reality, because the word ignorance is like a derogatory way of talking about somebody. And the Buddha wouldn't have used that word, but that's what people are translating his words to. It's better to think of it as a lack of wisdom, misunderstanding, confusion, that the mind has misperceptions about how the world truly works. The mind in the unenlightened state just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It firmly believes this anger and frustration is coming from something external, and therefore it continues to stay stuck, experiencing this over and over and over again. So even though we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues. Because of the lack of wisdom in the mind continues to crave, and it continues to have anger and frustration. So what you're doing on this path to enlightenment is you're cultivating wisdom. The Buddha is teaching you to cultivate wisdom about the natural laws of existence. There are certain natural laws that are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. And when you don't have wisdom of these natural laws, you will struggle and have difficulties in the world. It's like when we were little kids. We didn't understand the natural law of gravity, and that's why we struggled. We fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows, we broke our toys, and we cried and cried and cried because we were living in a world that we didn't understand. Slowly but surely, we gained wisdom of this natural law of gravity. That's why we started tying our shoes a bit tighter. We started looking at the surface of the sidewalk when we walked down the street. We stopped being so giddy and bouncing around like a kid all the time. And now we are completely awake, or we've cultivated wisdom about the natural law of gravity. That's why we can climb ladders, we can ride bicycles, we can get on airplanes and fly all over the world, because we're fully awake to the natural law of gravity, meaning we fully cultivated wisdom. Now we make wise decisions based on that. Well, there's other natural laws that are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. In these natural laws, you need to be able to awaken to them, where you cultivate wisdom about them. The way that you cultivate wisdom about something is you learn something intellectually. You investigate it and examine it. You then reflect on it to verify, is it true or is it false, through your own direct experience. But then you practice those teachings. You practice what you've learned, and that's where you see that it works, and now you know what the truth is. So while there's a whole host of natural laws that the Buddha is teaching you, the main natural law that he's teaching you is called the natural law of Gotama. Some people call it karma. You might have heard this. This is from the Sanskrit language, where the original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language. So people who study his language or his teachings will tend to use the word karma. If this translated to just one English word, I would just use it because it'd be easier for everyone. What it's helping you to understand is the cause and effect relationship between the decisions that you make in the experiences that you have. It's nothing mystical or magical. It's not about punishments and rewards. There's no being or entity overseeing this and deciding who experiences what. It's also not about fault or blame or anything like that. It's essentially like a sequence of events that whenever you make decisions wisely or unwisely, you're going to either experience wholesome karma or wholesome results, or unwholesome karma or unwholesome results. So when you make decisions, there's going to be a certain result. And when that result comes back to you, oftentimes when it's unwholesome, people tend to blame others, that it's other people's fault that you're experiencing this particular thing. Or they might say it's good luck or bad luck, or destiny or fate, or they might say it's God or some entity called the universe that is causing this thing to occur for you. Where in reality, it's your own decisions that are leading to any particular result that you experience. And if you're understanding this and you can peer through this, you can awaken to this natural law. The beauty of it is that if there's anything in your life that you don't particularly care for and you would rather not occur, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But if it's good luck or bad luck, you can't change that. By the way, there's no such thing as good luck or bad luck. If it's destiny or fate, you can't change that. And there's no such thing as destiny or fate. And then this being of God or some entity called the universe, you can't change those things. And you can't change other people. So for example, if I was walking down the beach and wind was blowing in my face and I'm kicking up the sand, and the sand is blowing back in my face, and I'm like, this is good luck or bad luck, or this is destiny or fate, or this is God or some entity called the universe, or this is other people that are causing me to experience this. Well, I'm just going to keep walking down the beach, kicking up sand, and I'm going to keep experiencing it coming back in my face. But if I understand the natural law of karma, I understand that every decision I make is producing a certain result. So now let me just cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and I will experience different results. Let me just stop kicking up sand, and now I will experience different results. Whereas if I blame all these other things, then I never cultivate the wisdom, I never make different decisions, and I keep experiencing the same results. So the beauty about the natural law of karma is it's very empowering. And that's what the Buddha is helping you to be able to see, is what are the decisions you're making that's leading to any particular result that you're experiencing. And now if there's something that you particularly don't care for, cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. So the Buddha isn't explaining to you the way the world should be. He's not giving you a bunch of rules and a bunch of commandments of how the world should be. And now if everybody follows these rules and commandments, the world will become a better place. Instead, he's teaching you the way the world is. By understanding the way the world is, your mind has that wisdom that you've cultivated, and now you can navigate the world peacefully. Because when you live in a world that you don't understand, you'll struggle. You'll have difficulties. That's what the stress, the anxiety is. That's what the anger and the frustration, the guilt, the shame, the fear, and all these other feelings, that's an indication to you that you haven't awakened yet and your mind hasn't figured out how to navigate this world. Your mind is struggling and having difficulties. So the Buddha didn't explain the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And that's what's going to help you to be able to now navigate the world peacefully. So what you're doing on this path is you're training your mind to experience complete peace and joy through acquiring wisdom of these natural laws of existence, which is going to help you to eradicate the pollutions of the mind. One of the ways to think about this is as we were growing up as children, our parents taught us how to clean this body. And now we've learned, it feels nice to have a clean body. We kind of clean this body every single day, right? But there's more to this being who you are than just this body. There's a mind also. So if you're only cleaning the body and you're not cleaning the mind, well, of course you feel uncomfortable. Of course you have stress and anxiety. Because if you can imagine going through the world without cleaning this body for many days, weeks, months, or years, you'd be very uncomfortable walking down the street having not taken a shower for 3 years. Well, how long has it been since you've cleaned the mind? Right? You may not have ever cleaned your mind. You might have not learned that because you weren't living in a place where these teachings existed. But now you're here. You're in a place that people understand how to clean the mind. And now you can understand the peace and the joy that you can experience as a result of cleaning up the mind. So you're getting rid of those pollutions. The teachings of the Buddha are timeless. What he taught 2,500 years ago, he spoke very clear, very concise, and very precise. And the natural laws that he described from 2,500 years ago, they're the exact same natural laws today, because these natural laws don't change. So his teachings are timeless. The things that he taught 2,500 years ago are just as applicable today as they were 2,500 years ago. He did teach about the cycle of rebirth, and he taught about these realms of existence, of the hell realm, the animal realm, the afflicted spirit realm, the human realm, and the heavenly realm. Now, with the teachings of the Buddha, there's nothing based in belief whatsoever. You're never interested in believing anything, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. To get to enlightenment, you've got to cultivate wisdom. And with belief, that's not wisdom. That's just belief. So these things that the Buddha taught, the cycle of rebirth and the 5 realms of existence, you can actually independently verify these things. You don't believe these things. You might not have the wisdom right now of how to independently verify that, but as you journey on the progress of the path, you can learn the wisdom of how to independently verify these things. But when you first get started like this, I don't suggest you go off and do that, because what's happened in the past, it's in the past. It doesn't matter right now. And what may or may not happen in the future, it's in the future. It doesn't matter. Right now, you're in the human state. Your mind experiences discontentedness, and you'd like to fix it. So what I suggest you do is you set aside the cycle of rebirth and the 5 realms of existence when you first get started. But as you get going, 2 or 3 years into this, you can actually independently verify these things. But instead, you stay focused on the core teachings of the Buddha. And as you see the condition of your mind and your life improving, you'll know that these teachings are actually working. And that's the time to actually start approaching this particular topic. But the Buddha did share these things for a reason. I'll explain to you why he shared them. First of all, he shared it because it's the truth. It's what actually is occurring. Right now, you might be believing that you only have one life, but you don't have any evidence that you only have one life, other than the fact that right now you can't remember your previous lives. But when you start training your mind and you start uprooting these pollutions out of your mind, there's a good chance that you might actually start noticing and having memories of your past lives. And if you started experiencing that and you didn't understand that this is actually true, you could think you're going crazy. Like, think if you were starting to have vivid memories of being murdered, and this was just kind of playing out in your mind over and over and over again. You just kept having these thoughts of being murdered. Well, it's not in this life, right? Because you're alive. So where did this come from? You could think that you're crazy if you didn't realize this was your previous life memories. Or some people can actually see these beings, these hell beings, afflicted spirits, which are ghosts, and heavenly beings. Oftentimes people think that these are in some far distant land somewhere, like the hell realm is deep in the core of the earth, or the heavenly realm is way up in the sky. But true reality is that these beings are all in the same time and space. Just like there's a human being sitting right here, if I got up and left, there could be an animal that comes and sits here, right? There could be a squirrel or a rabbit or an ant or a spider or something like that. We're all in the same time and space. So some people can actually see hell beings or ghosts or heavenly beings. And again, if you don't understand this is the way the world is, you could really get shaken up by that, thinking that you're crazy because you're seeing things that other people don't see. And then thirdly, some people can actually communicate with these beings, and these beings can communicate with you. You might actually hear beings of the hell realm or ghosts, the afflicted spirits, or even heavenly beings. Some people can hear this inside their mind. And again, you would think you're going crazy if you'd understand this is the way the world truly is. So the Buddha taught this for a reason, but it's not something that you need to learn right up front. So I suggest you set it to the side. In our book series here, I have 13 books. In volume 11, chapter 105, I have 17 different criteria of how to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. But it's in chapter 105 of volume 11 for a reason, because it's not something you usually approach right up front. But just understand he did teach this. Sometimes people will tell you that the Buddha did not teach about God. You'll have some people that will go as far as saying the Buddha denied the existence of God. Or some people will say that the Buddha rejected God, or that the Buddha did not answer the question of whether God exists or whether God doesn't exist. This isn't actually true. For someone who says this, they haven't penetrated into the teachings of the Buddha deeply enough to be able to see that he did teach about this being, but he didn't make this being the center of his teachings, because it's not this being that determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's your decisions that determine whether you get to enlightenment or not. So he did teach about this being, but it's not the center of his teachings. Instead, you're at the center of his teachings, because it's your decisions that lead to any particular result that you experience, whether you get to enlightenment or not. But there are teachings related to this being, and you can actually get to enlightenment either with a relationship with this being or without a relationship with this being. You can still get to enlightenment. It's kind of like your neighbor. You could have a relationship with your neighbor, and it's kind of nice because when you go on vacation, someone can look over your house, or if you need to borrow some salt or sugar, you could go ask your neighbor. But you could choose to not have a relationship with your neighbor, and you'd get through life just fine, right? It's the same thing with this being of God. So the Buddha did teach about this being, but this being isn't at the center of his teachings. The largest, most complete collection that we have of the teachings of the Buddha are in something called the Pali Canon. This is 45 books that are about this thick. The average person doesn't actually study the original words of the Buddha, and this is unfortunate because this is why we have so many misunderstandings in the world. If you see rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, prayer, things like this associated with the teachings of the Buddha never actually taught any of those kinds of things. But the vast majority of the world isn't studying with his original teachings, because 45 books that are this thick, like here in Thailand, it would cost you 3 months of your salary to be able to actually have a version of this. You probably don't own any book collections worth 3 months of your salary, right? So the average temple, the average person doesn't actually study his original teachings, which is unfortunate, because I would encourage you to study his original teachings. You don't need those 45 books, but what we've done in our book series is we've consolidated it into 13 books, and then we give it away for free, that you can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon. And now it's much more approachable for you. We call this book series The Words of the Buddha, The Path to Enlightenment, Revealing the Hidden, because these teachings have been inadvertently hidden for a very long period of time because it's so expensive to print them out. Nobody intentionally hid the teachings, but they were just kind of inadvertently hidden for so long. And now they're being brought back into the world in a way that people can actually understand them and get the benefit of them. So you have access to these teachings. These teachings were documented shortly after his death, because during his lifetime, everything he taught was oral, because they didn't have the ability to write things down. That technology didn't exist. But shortly after his death, they were able to document his teachings. They started writing them down. So that's what we have available to us. And you can learn those teachings. You can reflect on them to verify if they're true or false. And then you can practice them and see the results for yourself. And then lastly, what the teachings of the Buddha are, is they are to heal from what hurt you, so that you never need to hurt ever again. That's what his teachings are for. It's to do this inner work, this inner growth, this inner development. It's essentially like a self-help program to guide you in getting to a point where you don't have to hurt anymore. Because in the unenlightened state, you're going to have a certain amount of sorrow, grief, displeasure. You're going to have painful feelings. You're going to have guilt and shame and fear in your mind. And it's not fun having those feelings, but you can eliminate all of that. You can heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But what you need to start with is to understand what is hurting you, that it's not the outside world. And that's what I'm going to teach you after our little break. Do you guys have any questions on what the teachings of the Buddha are? Anything you'd like to ask? Remember, for those of you guys online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Anything you guys would like to ask? You have a question? Yeah, if you could pick up a microphone right there. That way the people online will be able to hear you. Yeah, the gray button, you'll see the lights come on, and then you'll be able to talk.
After Buddha's death, how did they remember all of his teachings?
By the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is functioning optimally. you'll never forget the wisdom that it takes for you to get to enlightenment. It's kind of like upgrading the operating system in your mind. So by the time he died, there were countless people who actually had gotten to enlightenment, and 500 of them got together shortly after his death, and they all agreed on what his teachings were, and they documented his teachings, because those 500 people would have never forgot what it took for them to get to enlightenment, because that wisdom that you cultivate, it's ingrained in your mind. So there were 500 of them that got together, they documented out his teachings, and they said, yes, this is what he actually taught. This is what led to my enlightenment, and this is what will lead to other people's enlightenment too. Mm-hmm. You have a question, ma'am?
Hello. Yes. Some people may like you, but some people may not like you. But for example, if you're working in a company, you have a very good relationship with people in previous company, but in the next company, like you have to suffer a lot. People dislike you. So for this situation, what I have understand just now is it's not fate. We have like consequences. If we do this, we have affect this one. So everything is not fate. Everything is like what we did. This is what I have understand just now. I'm not sure whether it's correct or not. So for this scenario, why it is so much difference between these two company situation?
Yeah, everything you're experiencing is a result of your decisions, but that's not to say that you're causing everything to occur that is happening. So if somebody dislikes you, that dislike is coming from their mind. It's not coming from you. You're going to see here in a moment when we explore the Four Noble Truths that what the mind has is a craving for permanence. That if you do things my way, this person will like you because you're doing it my way, and they're craving everybody to do things a certain way. But if you do things differently than what I want, this person doesn't like you, right? Because they don't like this change. They're craving for everyone to do it this way, instead of understanding that some people do their hair like this, and some people do their hair like that, and some people sit like that, and some people sit like that, and some people sit like that. It's just impermanence. That's all it is. But if somebody, like, let's just say a teacher, if a teacher likes people to sit a certain way and they dislike when a student sits a different way, that's because of their own mind. But a teacher can understand that the world is impermanent, that some people sit this way and some people sit that way and some people sit that way. That's just normal. But if you have a craving for permanence, you can only like people who do it this way. And now you'll dislike people who do it that way. So when you move to a new company, if someone dislikes you or people dislike you, that dislike is coming from their own mind. But you're experiencing this based on your choice to join this company, because now you have a choice to make. If people are very disgruntled and angry and bitter and harsh and hostile, you're experiencing that based on your decisions, not meaning you've caused it. You haven't caused the anger and bitterness, but you are experiencing the anger and bitterness based on your choice to join this company. But now you can make a different choice. You can choose to work for a different company, and now you'll experience different results, right? So you don't have to keep working for this company. But if you have a really high salary, if you have a really nice office, if you have a really nice title, your mind will hold on to this and you won't want to let it go, right? And now your mind will struggle rather than just let go and maybe move over here and make a little bit less money. Your mind's like, no, I want all this money. I want all this money. And your mind will be craving as well. So you'll see this when we get to the Four Noble Truths. So you are experiencing the results of your decisions, but that's not to say that everything that is occurring is caused by you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay, so now what I usually do as part of this class is once I teach you what something is, I teach you what something is not. This is a way that I teach. It helps you to understand what something is by understanding what something is not. So I'm going to teach you what the teachings of the Buddha are not, and this is going to help you to understand what they are. So the teachings of the Buddha are not a system of beliefs, doctrine, concepts, opinions, and views that will produce a pleasant afterlife if you believe in them, and an unpleasant afterlife if you disbelieve in them. The Buddha's teachings actually don't have any belief whatsoever. They're not concepts, opinions, or views. They're truths that can be independently verified. The teachings of the Buddha aren't about an afterlife. They're about getting to a wonderful life now, right? You can learn and grow and develop and get to a wonderful life now in this life. And you can see that his teachings are actually working to do that. Whereas if you're just believing things and hoping something good happens when you die, wow, you're going to find out it's going to be too late, right? Once you die, you would like to know now whether you're making wise decisions or not. And that's what the teachings of the Buddha help you to do, is by cultivating your mind, you can see situations that you were once angry and frustrated and bitter and harsh. You're in that same situation and your mind's quite peaceful and quite joyful. And you can see that it's these teachings that are leading to that. So his teachings aren't about a pleasant afterlife. It's about getting to a wonderful life now. And it's not about beliefs, opinions, and views. It's about truths that you can independently verify. I would say that the teachings of the Buddha are not a religion, but it all depends on what you've been taught as a religion. If you think of religion in this way, that there's one person at the top telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing, if you think about religion as rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and things like this, or if you think about religion as rules and commandments that everyone must follow in order to produce a peaceful world, the teachings of the Buddha aren't those things. There's not just one person at the top of Buddhism. It just doesn't exist, right? There are no rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. If you're seeing those things, those aren't his actual teachings. And he doesn't teach you rules and commandments. Instead, he's teaching you how to understand your mind and the world around you through these natural laws. And when you understand this, now you can navigate the world peacefully. Essentially, what the Buddha did is he took human psychology and he boiled it down to a common language that everybody can understand. And now you can train your mind skillfully. So if this is the way you think about religion, the Buddha's teachings are not a religion. If you think about things like punishments and rewards, maybe you've been exposed to that kind of stuff, where people teach these types of teachings through punishments and rewards. The Buddhist teachings don't have that kind of stuff as part of them. If you think about mystical and magical things, or superstitious or auspicious things, that's not the Buddhist teachings. He actually says it very clearly. He says, these teachings are not superstitious and auspicious. There's nothing superstitious or auspicious in his teachings. Or also, his teachings are not something to attempt to force others to do or try to convince other people to do it. Sometimes when you come to a place like this, everybody believes certain things, and now they send you out into the world to try to convince other people to believe those same kinds of things. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. It's to help you to learn, grow, and develop. There's no responsibility for you to go out into the world and tell other people to learn these same things. This is a program for you. This is a self-help program for you. It's not about convincing other people. Also, if you spent any time on social media, you might see those little memes where they kind of have these short little catchy phrases, and then it says the Buddha, right? If you've ever seen these kinds of things, 99.9% of the time, it's actually not the words of the Buddha. I've researched a lot of these things where people will send out these quotes and it'll say the Buddha. His teachings don't have short little catchy phrases. His teachings are like really deep and very meaningful. But if you research these things, most of these quotes are from the last 100 to 200 years, and people kind of slap the name the Buddha on there in order to give it more credibility. But it's not actually from the Buddha himself. So if you see these little short catchy phrases, more likely than not, it's not from the actual Buddha. And then also, and lastly, his teachings are not stuck in a cultural past that degrades or denigrates any particular type of person. Sometimes when people think about a teacher from 2,500 years ago, they think, surely the Buddha denigrated women, right? He probably degraded women and looked at them as a lower person. No, not at all. He taught husbands how to respect their wives and take care of their wives. And he taught their wives how to take care of their husbands. He was also aware of same-gender relationships too. And he didn't say that this is harmful because it's two loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to be in a relationship with each other. They're not causing any harm to anybody, right? So the Buddha's teachings aren't based in culture, because with culture is this population of people have agreed that these rules are something that we find acceptable. But now this culture over here has a different set of rules that they agree are acceptable. And when these two types of people come together, they oftentimes have conflict because they think of the world in different ways based on their culture. So the Buddhist teachings are actually cutting through culture and helping you to be able to see true reality based on the natural laws. So his teachings aren't based in culture at all. I've actually practiced these teachings in many different places. I've gone to the USA, I've gone to Mexico, I've gone to Egypt. Obviously, I live in Asia. I've been in all different parts of the world practicing these teachings, and they work in every single place because it's not based in culture. It cuts through that and helps you to be able to see the natural laws. And now, while you're practicing the natural laws, they're the same throughout the entire world. So that's what the Buddhist teachings are not, is they are not stuck in a cultural past that degrades or denigrates a minority group or anything like that. So any questions on what the teachings of the Buddha are not? No questions? Okay. So normally what I do at this point is I take a little break for you guys. It's 2:10. So why don't we take like a 20-minute break? And at 2:30, what we're going to do is I'm going to come back and I'm going to teach you the very first teaching of the Buddha, where you can learn the problem in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. You can have a breakthrough to being able to see why your mind experiences what it experiences and then how to fix it. So if you guys would like to take a nice little break, then we'll come back at 2:30 and I'll go on from there. So thank you guys for your questions and thank you for being here. And perhaps I'll see you in about 20 minutes. Okay. welcome back to you guys. We're going to continue on helping you guys to understand an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha. I'm going to share with you his very first teaching. It's called the Four Noble Truths. It's important that as you embark on your journey to understand the teachings of the Buddha, that you don't believe any of his teachings. Like I was saying before, you need to learn, examine, and investigate his teachings. You need to reflect on them to verify if they're true or false. And then you need to practice his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life. So I'm going to show you how to do that with this very first teaching of the Buddha. And when the Buddha was introducing his teachings to students, he encouraged them to learn with eager ears. What it means to listen with eager ears is to actively listen to the teachings. That if you kind of just sit back and let the teachings kind of roll over your head, you're not going to be able to understand them enough to be able to experience the results and the benefits. But if you listen with eager ears, actively learning, you'll actually be able to independently verify his teachings and then practice them. So as we go, just like before, you guys can ask questions. I'm going to be stopping it a few times, helping you guys as you have questions. So in order to understand the Four Noble Truths, I would like to let you know that it's part of this teaching. This is called the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha, where everything the Buddha taught in one way or another plugs into this. One of the ways you might think about this is it's like 8 individual dials, and you're tweaking these dials. It's like if you had a speaker system and you were trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, you would kind of tweak those dials and get a better quality sound out of the speakers. The same thing's true about your mind. You can kind of tweak your mind and get a better performing mind. In this first teaching that I'm going to share with you, it's actually the very first step. It's called right view. In order to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand the 3 universal truths. So I'm going to help you to understand these because these are like building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. And then you can actually independently verify by the time we get to the Four Noble Truths what the Buddha actually taught. And you can independently verify these too. But you need these in order to understand the Four Noble Truths. Now we call them the 3 universal truths and the Four Noble Truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true as well, but you need to know that they're true. That's why you're not believing them. So this first universal truth, the Buddha is explaining how the world is. Remember, he's not explaining the way the world should be. He's explaining the way the world is. And what he's helping you to understand is that the world is impermanent, that it's constantly changing, that everything around you in terms of material objects, anything you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, it is impermanent, meaning it's constantly changing. It will arise, it will change, and then it will fade away. This is called a conditioned object, that it arises, it changes, and fades away. Then there's something called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. Enlightenment is that way, that it's unconditioned. That's why it's a permanent mental state. And the natural laws that the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago, those are also unconditioned. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. But everything in the world around you that you can see, hear, smell, taste, that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, that is all impermanent. And this is an important building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths when we get to it. But you can't believe this. What I just shared with you in about 2 or 3 minutes is the intellectual understanding of the universal truth of impermanence. You don't believe that. You now move it into reflection to try to independently verify if what I just shared with you is true or false. And here's the way you do it. I suggest you take things that you're familiar with, like this physical body. You're familiar with this physical body. Ask yourself, is this body permanent, meaning it's never changed, or is the body impermanent, meaning it's constantly changing? What would you say? Is the body permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? We get taller, we get shorter, we get bigger, we get smaller, right? We get pimples and wrinkles and moles. When we were first born, we didn't have any teeth, and then our teeth grew in. That was change. But then those fell out, right? And then more came in. And then we started getting cavities and things like this, right? Our hair changes. We get gray hair, right? Our hair grows. That's change. Ever since the egg and the sperm came together inside of our mother's womb, this body's been constantly changing. What about your relationships? If your relationships are permanent, that means you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life. Or if your relationships are impermanent, that means you've had people coming and going in and out of your life. What would you say? They're impermanent, right? People are constantly coming and going in and out of your life. What about your bank account? Is this permanent or impermanent? Very impermanent. Yeah, going up and down, up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. That's change, right? Some people's goes down, down, down. That's change, right? So what about the weather? Is that permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, right? So we could go on and on and on like this. When we first started class, we had a certain number of people and then somebody came and joined us, right? That's impermanence, constant change. If you look around at the wood planks on the floor of the temple, some are longer, some are shorter, some are one color, some are a different color. You're walking down the street on the sidewalk, you see a crack in the sidewalk. That's impermanence, it's change. Everything is constantly changing around you. You see green leaves in the tree, you see brown leaves on the ground. That's change. So remember, the Buddha is explaining to you the way the world is, that everything around you is constantly changing. Okay, this is a building block when we get to the Four Noble Truths. The second universal truth is called discontentedness. This is where the Buddha helps you understand the unenlightened mind and what you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. Some people refer to this as suffering. If you've seen the teachings of the Buddha in other places, they might be using this word suffering. I don't use this word because it doesn't really fully describe what the Buddha was teaching. So I'll explain to you what the Buddha was teaching here, then I'll circle back and help you understand why I don't use the word suffering. The word that's in the original source text in the Pali language is dukkha. This translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. Because what the Buddha is explaining are three feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences: pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant feelings. These are called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, your mind is then going to experience a feeling. The pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, or euphoria. The painful feelings are things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are all very painful to experience. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you like. But shyness is a good example. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or maybe say you were on public transportation and you were maybe sitting on a bus and somebody comes and sits next to you and you don't know this person. Maybe your body's touching their body and you're like, it's not painful, it's not pleasant. Maybe it's neither painful nor pleasant. Okay, so this is the three feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences. And these are called conditioned feelings. What that means is based on a condition, you're then going to experience these feelings. So for example, if you look outside and you see it's sunny outside and you get really happy and excited about that, that's a conditioned feeling. That based on the condition that the sun is present, you will now be happy and excited. But the problem with this is the sun is not permanent. So that means when the sun goes away, you're not happy anymore. When it's raining, you're sad or frustrated. This is a conditioned feeling, right? So the mind in the unenlightened state is going up and down and up and down and up and down. So for example, if an unenlightened being wakes up in the morning and they see it's sunny outside, they might get so happy and excited. It's like, wow, I can go hiking today. There's this hiking trail that I've been wanting to go on. I'm going to call my friends. We're going to have a good time. Oh, this is going to be so perfect. And now they go take a shower. And you come out and you see it's raining. And now you're angry or frustrated or sad or some other feeling, right? That's because you based your feeling of happiness on the sun. And the sun is not permanent. That's why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness and permanent joy, because the mind is experiencing conditioned feelings. Because what an enlightened being is experiencing is they wake up in the morning, they're already happy before they ever saw it was sunny outside. They're experiencing what's called unconditioned happiness. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order for the mind to be happy, that it's unconditioned, that the mind can just be inwardly joyful and inwardly happy. So now that person wakes up and they see it's sunny outside. It's like, sweet, I'm going to go hiking today. This is going to be really fun. I'm going to call my friends who've been interested in going on this trip for a long time to go see this hiking trail. And now you go take a shower and you come out and it's raining. And it's like, it's raining. Well, guess I'm not going hiking today. Maybe I'll stay home and read a book. Or maybe I'll go to the mall. Or maybe I'll invite my friends over and we can have dinner. I'll cook them some food. right? You can maintain your happiness because your happiness wasn't based on the sun. So therefore, when the sun is gone, you can still maintain your happiness. You're beyond the conditioned feelings. You're no longer going up and down and up and down and up and down. Your mind is just always cheerful, always bright, always glad, always uplifted, right? So this is called discontentedness, where your mind is shaken up. It's unsteady, it's uncalm. If you've ever been so excited that you like tripped and fell, you know what I'm talking about, that this is like your mind's all shaken up, right? Now, some people refer to this as suffering. I don't refer to it as suffering because it doesn't fully explain what you're experiencing here. The word suffering explains the painful feelings really well. The anger, the sadness, the frustration, and all these other feelings. It explains that very well. But if your boss came into your office and they said, hey, you're doing such a good job, I'm going to give you $100,000 a year more than what you're currently making. I'm going to give you a raise. And you got really excited about that. Would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? Or say that person that you don't know comes and sits next to you on public transportation and your body's touching their body. Would you say you were suffering in that situation? Your mind's displeased, you're having unsatisfactoriness, but you probably wouldn't say you were suffering, right? So if we only use that word suffering, then we're only understanding 33%, 1/3 of what the Buddha was teaching. That means we're missing the understanding of pleasant feelings and neither painful nor pleasant. We're missing 66% of his teachings. So how could you get to the goal of the teachings of the Buddha if you're missing 66% of his teachings? You need to get to the point where you see these pleasant feelings, the conditioned pleasant feelings, as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. Because if you allow your mind to get the conditioned pleasant feelings, the painful ones are waiting for you right around the corner. So for example, if you get a new job and you get so happy and excited about that brand new job, well, when you lose your job, because you will, it is impermanent, then you're going to be sad and angry and frustrated. 5 years later, when the company goes out of business or when they downsize and they lay you off or they fire you, you're going to be sad. You're going to be angry. You're going to be frustrated, right? So if you allow your mind to get conditioned pleasant feelings, that means you can only be happy if that condition is met. And that means your happiness is shrinking. If my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if my bank account has this much money, if I have this kind of house and this kind of car, then I will be happy, right? So your happiness is shrinking. This is why some people are old and grumpy. Not everybody's old and grumpy, but some people are, because they have all these things in their mind that they want in order for them to be happy, right? So the Buddha is teaching you how to get beyond that. So you need to be able to see the conditioned pleasant feelings, these temporary pleasant feelings, as just as much as part of the problem as the painful ones, because you'll never get to the permanent happiness if you keep holding on to the temporary happiness. So that's why I use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. It brings your mind to the full understanding of what the Buddha was teaching you here. Okay, so the way that you independently verify whether this is true or false is you know that your mind's unenlightened and ask yourself, is this what you experience? Is there any feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into this? Because the Buddha is describing to you the unenlightened mind that has these three feelings. If there's a certain feeling that you experience that doesn't match into this, then this isn't a universal truth. So if you think that there's a feeling that doesn't match here, let me know, because we're going to get to questions here in a moment and I'll answer whatever questions you guys have. Okay. Then there's this third universal truth. It's called the universal truth of non-self. I'm going to explain to you guys what this is. This is actually the solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. But let me explain the problem first, because then you'll understand the solution. Remember the 10 fetters, the 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind? This is a solution to the very first fetter. The very first fetter, or this pollution that's in the mind, is called personal existence view. This is where the mind clings and holds on to this body or to the mind, thinking that this is who you are as a person. Your mind will cling to your self-image or your self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. The mind is confused, thinking that this is who you are. So for example, If you've ever been to a social situation and you spilt something on your clothing and you were embarrassed by that, that's your personal existence view, where you want to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only be happy if you're being perceived that way. Or maybe you stood in front of your closet and you're like, who am I going to see today? And how do I want to look? And maybe you put on a certain set of clothes and you looked in the mirror. You're like, no, that's not it. You put on another set of clothes. You're like, that's not it. Put on another set. Okay, now I feel comfortable to go outside. Or maybe you looked in the mirror and you saw a pimple or a wrinkle or a mole, or you saw a gray hair, or you started losing your hair and you're shaken up by that. That's your personal existence view, clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are. Or maybe you were like me when I was a child. I used to get gel and mousse before I go to school, and I'd run it through my hair, and I try to get every little hair in exactly the right spot before I could go to school. And sometimes I did this for so long, I'd miss the school bus, right? So these are some of the types of things that you'll do when you have personal existence view, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way based on your self-image. But there's also something called a self-identity in your mind. This is based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. You can cling to any number of these things as who you think you are as a person. Like, I am Ecuadorian, or I am American, or I am Chinese, or I am a Brit, or I am an Aussie, I am Lithuanian, I am. And if you cling to any of this stuff as who you think you are, you'll experience discontentedness. So for example, if you're in a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody says, all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. And in your mind, you think that I am American, where you'll be like, wow, they're talking about me. And you feel like very pleasure, right? All these pleasant feelings. But because of impermanence, it's only a matter of time before somebody at the other table over here says something degrading and disparaging about the place where you come from. And if you're holding on to that as who you think you are, you'll be angry, you'll be frustrated because you think they're talking about you, right? Or let's just say you have a certain job or occupation, like you're a police officer, and you think, I am a police officer. Well, as long as you're doing that job, you'll feel good. But let's just say 10, 15, 20 years later, you get laid off, or you get injured and you can't do the job, or say you retire and now you can't do the job anymore. You're maybe driving a taxi, but your mind's identifying with, I am a police officer. And now you're disgruntled and frustrated and agitated as you're driving the taxi. Or maybe you've been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend and you thought, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend. Right? And now when you guys are in the relationship, there's a certain amount of comfort. But when you guys broke up, your mind didn't identify with I am single. And now you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into the next relationship. You wanted to get back into another relationship because the mind didn't feel comfortable with I am single. Because the mind identified with I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend. And now the mind might have tried to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. But that didn't solve the problem. This personal existence view is the problem. That's the pollution, where the mind thinks that this body or this mind is you, this self-image or this self-identity. So you can get past this, where you understand that this body is not you. This mind is not you. But the mind's going to keep clinging to this, thinking that this is who you are. In fact, some people get this so bad, they might actually go to their family or friends back in their home country, and they'll say, Mom and Dad, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find myself. I need to go to Thailand so I can find my true self, right? And now they'll come to a place like Thailand or Mexico or different places like this, and they'll try to find themselves, right? And now they'll go around and spend some time there. 6 months, a year later, they'll be like, wow, I found myself. I know who I am again. And now they'll go home to their family and say, wow, I feel so much better. I know who I am now. Well, they actually haven't found themselves, because what the Buddha teaches you is that there is no self. What they might have found is they might have found new friends, new hobbies, new activities, maybe a new job, but they haven't found themselves, because this doesn't actually exist. There is a body, there is a mind, and it's come together for this existence, and we call this a human being. but this isn't who you are as a person. Sometimes people are taught the choices and decisions that you make define who you are as a person. So let's just say in the past, somebody used drugs and alcohol. They might think, I am an alcoholic or I am an addict. No, that's not true. In the past, you made the choice to use drugs and alcohol, but that doesn't define who you are as a person today. But somebody will kind of cling to this identity of I am an alcoholic, I am an addict. And now they might feel guilt or shame or other feelings like this based on this. So if you're going to get free of your discontent feelings, you need to get to a point where you realize non-self, that you understand there is a body, there is a mind. They've come together for this existence, but you're not forming your feelings and emotions based on all of this. And there's more details here to understand this universal truth of non-self. But when I first introduce it to you like this, I just give you a little bit of details and then we kind of move on from there. But just understand that sometimes I teach this particular topic for an hour to an hour and a half just on that particular topic. Okay, so I just kind of introduced it to you because in your mind, your mind's been conditioned your whole life to think that this is who you are. In fact, when we grew up as children, we were all given labels. I don't know all your labels, but my label was David, right? And now we have a certain character, a certain personality. Or we grew up in a certain country and we have a flag, we have a national anthem, we have certain sports teams that we cheer for because I am American and I'm supposed to cheer for the American team. No, that's not true, right? This being was born on a land that is referred to as America, but my mind doesn't have to adopt the identity as I am American. I can choose to not adopt that into my mind and just understand that, this being is a human being. That's all that it is, right? So there's more here for you to learn. And sometimes people understand it when I first start teaching it, and sometimes they don't. So if you don't understand it, it's okay. There's more for you to understand here. But you can independently verify that there is no self, even at this early stage. So think about this. Think about these stages of your life. When you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and then now. Think about yourself and how you viewed yourself. Did you view yourself in the same way during all those 4 phases of your life, or has it been constantly changing? What would you say? What's that? It's been changing, right? From your early childhood to teenage years to early adulthood to now, it's been changing. You haven't viewed yourself in the same way. So you can see there's no permanent self. Here's another way. If your arm was cut off at the shoulder and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? She says no. You say no. Are you less of a person if you only have one hand and one arm? You think so? Yeah. Sometimes people say that. What that is, let's just talk about this first. Oftentimes, when I ask if you get cut off at the arm or at the shoulder and you have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? Most people say, no, I'm not less of a person. And there you can see intellectually that you understand that this body is not you. Because otherwise you would have answered that question differently. If you thought that this body is you, you would actually say, yes, there's less body, so therefore I'm less of a person. But intellectually, you understand this body isn't you, because otherwise you wouldn't have answered the question that way. But in the heat of the moment, when somebody says something about this body, they're like, wow, you're so beautiful, you're so handsome. That shirt brings out the colors of your eyes. You're like, wow, they're talking about me. But then it's only a matter of time before somebody says, where did you get that haircut? Are you going outside looking like that? And now you're frustrated and angry because you think they're talking about me. But right here today, intellectually, you understand that this body is not you, right? So you can see that, right? So as you progress more and more, you can see that this body is not you. But with the personal existence view, the confusion that the mind has in the heat of the moment, when somebody says something agreeable or disagreeable about this body, you're going to form feelings based on it because of that confusion, that personal existence view that's in there, where intellectually you can understand. That's the difference between intellectual understanding versus what you actually practice on a day-to-day basis. So let me just stop here and see what questions you guys might have on any of these three universal truths. Anything you guys would like to ask?
I think something that came up while you were talking about all that is how do you classify the feeling of depletion, burnout, that kind of thing? I feel like that's a physical sensation that some of us cannot avoid sometimes.
Yeah, this is more of a condition of the mind versus a feeling. A feeling is more acute, more, temporary, where a condition of the mind is more pervasive. It's more persistent over a period of time. So the Buddha classifies the feelings versus condition of the mind separately. So as a feeling, I would put that, if we were going to call it a feeling, in the painful feelings. But you can get to a point where you don't have that any longer. The reason why you have that is you're going to find out here in a moment with the Four Noble Truths. You can get to a point where you don't have burnout, or you don't have exhaustion. Enlightened beings, they get sleepy where they need to sleep, but they don't get exhausted. They don't get tired. They don't get depleted and burned out like that. But I'll explain to you why that is when you see the Four Noble Truths. Mm-hmm. You have a question, ma'am? Mm-hmm.
Hello. Because the pleasant feeling is also include inside the conditional feeling, right? Sometimes I also feel like whenever I have some kind of happiness, I have conscious by myself that, okay, this one is not permanent and I should not be happy. Because I know that if I being like excited and happy, right, then if one day if I lose it, then I will be sad.
Mm-hmm.
I know this.
Mm-hmm.
That's why whenever I feel happy, I stop myself. Don't be happy. Don't be excited. So by doing this in my life, I feel like I don't find any enjoyment in my life.
Yeah, this is what your mind needs to learn how to do, is that right now you're getting conditioned pleasant feelings or painful feelings. You need to learn how to come to the middle where you can enjoy things without conditioned feelings. This is very odd to hear for someone who hasn't trained their mind in this way, because the way that an unenlightened being functions is when they're getting pleasant feelings, they actually enjoy things. And when they're getting painful feelings, they don't enjoy it. It's this black and white world where there's this middle way that the Buddha taught, is you can actually train your mind to enjoy something without conditioned pleasant feelings, where you can have unconditioned happiness. Even sitting in traffic, you can enjoy that. Looking around, checking out the cars, looking at the clouds, looking in your car, whatever it is, you can still enjoy even being in traffic, for example. But in the unenlightened state, you can't imagine enjoying something without getting pleasant feelings. So your mind, because it's not fully awake, right now, it sounds like you're pulling away from the conditioned pleasant feelings, which is great, but it hasn't come into that middle yet where your mind can be bright and cheerful and uplifted and you can just enjoy everything. Where in the unenlightened state, you can only enjoy when you get what you want. So for example, if you sit down to a meal and you're eating a meal, if the food tastes good, you'll say, wow, I really enjoyed this meal. Or if the food tastes bad, then you'll say, I didn't enjoy this meal, right? Where what you need to be able to get to is like, this food is just to nourish the body. That's all it's for. And while some food's going to taste great, other food is not. It's going to be impermanent, and you're not going to be able to eat wonderful tasting food every single meal. It's just not possible. So when you eat this meal and it tastes really great, you need to train your mind like, wow, this tastes really great, but it's not permanent. And now when you're eating this other meal that doesn't taste so great, you can still enjoy this experience of eating the meal, having the conversation with your friends, but it's not like, oh, I didn't enjoy this because the food is no good. So you need to learn how to have fun and enjoy when you have good food, and enjoy when you don't have good food either. You can enjoy that as well if you train your mind to do that. That's what the Buddha's going to help you to be able to understand how to do. But right now, you're not there yet. That's why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, that you're pulling away from the conditioned pleasant feelings, but you don't quite enjoy what you're doing right now because your mind's not fully awake yet. It's not fully in the middle. No, that's what you would like to do. You would like to actually pull away from the conditioned pleasant feelings, but you need the full teachings in order to be able to bring your mind to the point where it's brightened up and it's cheerful, because the mind will tend to swing. That when you're over here and you're getting pleasant feelings and you start letting go of those cravings, desires, attachments, which you're going to learn about in a moment, your mind will swing to the other side. And now you'll feel dull and lazy and lethargic and mundane. You'll feel like the world is just mundane. But that's the two extremes. You actually need to bring your mind to the middle, where your mind can be cheerful and bright and glad and uplifted all the time. But that's not where your mind is right now. So that's why you're not experiencing what I'm describing yet. Yep. But the Buddhist teachings will help you to get there. Okay, so now once you understand these three universal truths of impermanence, discontentedness, and non-self, there's only one more thing that I need to teach you, and then we can explore the Four Noble Truths. This is something called craving, desire, attachment, expectations, wants, holding, grasping, clinging. This is where your mind is pulling in the direction of the objects of your affection and thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. It's like the mind has an unquenchable thirst, that the mind just chases and chases and chases and chases and chases things. And the mind thinks that if I can just get that thing, everything in my life will be perfect. So maybe you were at the mall and you were like, oh man, new pair of shoes. Oh my gosh, if I get those new pair of shoes, oh, I just can't wait to get those shoes. Or maybe it was a piece of jewelry, or maybe an article of clothing, or a video game, or something like this. The mind sits and it thinks, it's like, what do I need to be happy? More money. That's what'll fix everything. Let me get some more money. So it'll chase after that. And then the mind will get what it wants, or sometimes it won't get what it wants. And I was like, what do I need to be happy? A new boyfriend, a new girlfriend. That'll fix everything. Let me get one of those. And now the mind will chase after that for a while. And then eventually you'll say, what do I need to do? I know what I need to do. Let me go to Thailand. That'll fix everything. Let me go to Thailand. And now you'll be really excited to go to Thailand. So your mind will long and yearn, pulling in the direction of the objects of its affection, thinking something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. Do you know what I'm talking about here? Have you experienced this? Where your mind was pulling towards something, wanting that object? Okay, you guys know what I'm talking about. Okay, so now we can explore the Four Noble Truths. This is where you understand the problem in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. You can have a breakthrough here today to being able to fully understand why is your mind experiencing these discontent feelings. So this first noble truth is explaining the problem. Everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. Those conditioned feelings, that's the problem. That as long as your mind is unenlightened, you will experience pleasant feelings when the mind's getting what it wants. When you're not getting what you want, you experience painful feelings. And then there's the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. The mind's going up and down and up and down and up and down. That's the problem that you experience. The cause of that problem is the second noble truth. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. I'm going to say that a few times, and I'm going to give you some examples. Those discontent feelings, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. It's being caused by craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. The mind wants things to be permanent when in reality you live in an impermanent world. So here's some examples. Think back to a boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with. When you guys first got together, probably really happy, really excited. This person was showing you affection. They were calling you and checking in on you. They were inviting you to the movies, to dinner. You were going to the park. You were taking nice walks together. You were having great conversations. You might have even been having intimate contact together. All these pleasant feelings. But then over time, the relationship deteriorated and you guys broke up. And then you might have gotten angry or frustrated. You might have been lonely or bored. You might have been missing this person. This is not from your love. This is your mind holding on and craving permanence. As long as the mind's getting what it wants, it'll experience pleasant feelings. But when the mind's not getting what it wants, it'll experience painful feelings. So the mind, when it was together with this person, you were getting what you wanted. But then when you guys broke up, you didn't understand this impermanence, that this person is not permanent in your life. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, you guys were going to die. And now this person is no longer in your life, right? And now you have boredom or loneliness, or you're missing this person, or you're angry or frustrated. Maybe you've had someone close to you that has died, like grandma or grandpa, mom or dad, brothers or sisters, friends or family members. You're not a bad person because you were grieving or you were sorrowful, but the reason why this was occurring was not because of your love. The reason why it was occurring is because the mind's craving permanence, and it can only be happy when it gets what it wants. If grandma and grandpa are alive, wonderful, yay, I'm really happy. But then when they die, the mind doesn't like that. One of the ways to say this is that, yes, the mind is craving permanence. The other way to say is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. When things are changing in your life, the mind doesn't like that. If you look at your life, the times when you've been struggling the most, it's when things are changing. Even when you're making the decision for the change. Your living location's changing, your job or occupation was changing, your relationships were changing. That's when you struggled and had the most difficulties. If you've ever been to a wedding and you've seen people get married and maybe someone at the wedding was crying, that's not love. Because, hey, this person's starting a new relationship. This is wonderful. They're going out into the world with this new person. This is outstanding. But no, mom and dad are crying. Brothers and sisters are crying. That's because their mind's holding on and craving permanence. It's like, that's my brother. That's my sister. How dare you take them away from me, right? The mind's holding on and craving permanence. Or say you can remember maybe when you went to school, when you get dropped off at school, or if you've ever seen children get dropped off at school, mom and dad might be crying, or the children might be crying. Well, if this is love, it's like, hey, your child's going off into the world. They're getting an education. This is outstanding. This is so wonderful. No, mom and dad are crying. The kids are crying because the mind's holding on. They thought mom and dad were permanent, and mom and dad's mind was holding on. And here they go, sending their kid off into the world on their own, right? This is the impermanent nature of the world, but the mind craves permanence, right? Here's another thing. We'll use something that doesn't involve relationships. Let's just say you have a brand new car. This is like the ideal car. You've always been wanting this car your entire life, and you saved up your money and you bought this car. And now you're driving down the road. Everyone's like, wow, look at her. She's so successful. Wow, look at him. He's really doing things wonderfully. And now you're so proud in your new car, and you park it at the store, and you go inside, and you come out, and there's a scratch on your car. Oh, gosh. You might be so frustrated. You might be so angry. You've been saving for 10 years for this car. It's not the scratch that's causing the anger and frustration. And it's not the person who scratched your car. It's the mind craving permanence. I want this car to look permanently beautiful. That's what the mind's doing. But it doesn't realize this car is impermanent. We're not talking about what's wise or unwise, right? Because when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that this car is going to deteriorate. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. It's only a matter of time before all this stuff happens. But if you crave permanence, when all this change is happening, your mind won't like it. So again, one of the ways to say this is that the mind craves permanence. Another way to say it is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. And when you're experiencing those painful feelings coming up in your mind, the mind will tend to be unskillful. What you'll tend to do is you'll push people away. You'll push away friends or family, right? This is called aversion, where the mind thinks that's going to solve the problem. But you can see that that didn't solve the problem, because when you push them out of your life, you still get angry, you still get frustrated. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like growling and roaring, and you're trying to fear this other person into doing things your way. Or the third thing you'll do is you tend to put expectations on people and try to pressure them to do things your way. And you can't live harmoniously with all beings, because it's only a matter of time before somebody does something different than what your mind expects. Not everyone's going to do things your way. There's only one person in the world that does things your way 100% of the time, and it's you, right? So when this craving is in the mind and this anger is arising, you will firmly believe that it's something external that's causing it. And that's where you'll push people away. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile, and you'll put your expectations on people. But it's actually coming from your own mind. It's your own cravings, desires, attachments. Now, I'm sure you've been in arguments with people where you've been adamantly trying to convince them that they have to stop doing what they're doing, or you're going to continue to get angry and frustrated. You probably yelled and hollered and screamed at people, trying to convince them to stop doing what they're doing, because you're going to keep getting angry. But it wasn't them that was causing you to be angry. That doesn't mean that they weren't doing something unwise. They could have been doing something unwise, but your mind was craving for them to do it this way. And you can only be happy if they do it this way, right? So you need to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. So this is where you don't believe me, okay? So I just taught this to you, the second noble truth. Don't believe me that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Look at it yourself. Take a recent time where you've been angry or sad or frustrated or some other feeling. It could have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that with these fresh eyes, because at that time you might have been trying to blame somebody else. That's what the mind usually does. But look at this situation with fresh eyes. What did you want? What did you expect? What were you longing, yearning for? And if you would have gotten what you wanted, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted or you expected, your mind was angry or sad or frustrated. If you can see this for yourself, then you can have a real breakthrough to being able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's not the outside world. But if you need help, let me know and I will help you. I had a student contact me one time and they said, David, I need your help. I said, okay, what's going on? They said, I know that you teach that it's my own mind that's causing these feelings, but I'm sure that it's my wife. And I said, okay, well, what do you have to say? What's going on? They said, well, I went to work the other day. My house looked beautiful. And when I came home from work, she had a craft project all over the house. And when I walked in, I got frustrated and angry. How did I cause this? I wasn't even there. She's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be angry? And I said, no, it was your own mind. You were craving permanence. You had the expectation that your house was going to look exactly the same when you came home as when you went to work. The only thing that's happened here is change. That's it. It just changed. Your house can't look a particular way permanently. It's not possible. So when the weather goes from sun to rain and someone gets frustrated, there's no other person involved. It's just change. That's all it is. When your bank account balance goes from here to here and someone gets sad or frustrated, it's just change. That's all it is. But the mind craves permanence. So you need to be able to see this for yourself, because the beauty in this is when you can see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, is that means you can eliminate them. If it was everybody else that's causing these feelings, you can't eliminate them, because you can't convince 8 billion people to do things your way, because the mind in the unenlightened state can only be happy when people do it your way, right? But you can't convince 8 billion people to do it your way. So that's the beauty, is that you can actually solve this. That's what the third noble truth is bringing to your attention, that the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. Because if you understand the cause is this longing, yearning, this chasing after the objects of your affection, well, if you eliminate that, you can eliminate your discontentedness because you eliminated the cause. But sometimes when I say this, people say, well, if I eliminate my craving, desire, attachment, won't my mind swing to the other side where I'm dull and lethargic and lazy? Well, it might, but that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. The Buddha is teaching you to come to the middle where you can make wise decisions to pursue your goals, your objectives, and your interest through enthusiasm and ambition. But you need to eliminate that longing, yearning, that craving for permanence. That's what's going to bring you the peace and the joy. And you can verify this too. Think about the boyfriend or girlfriend that you broke up with. At some point, your mind regained its peacefulness, perhaps. I'm not sure. You might have had a recent breakup, right? But think back to maybe another one where you were angry or frustrated. Initially, when it first happened, you were angry and frustrated or lonely or bored or missing that person. But at some point, your mind let go. That's what the Buddha is teaching you as part of the third noble truth, that your mind needs to let go. When you let go, that's where your peace and joy came back. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. Or you were like, you know what? If she wants to live in another part of the world, so be it. And you let go. And when your mind let go, that's where your peace and your joy came back. But the thing is that your mind doesn't know how to let go. That's where the fourth noble truth comes in. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. That's the complete perfect plan that's going to train your mind how to let go, because the mind doesn't know how to do that. But it starts with right view. Right view is to have the right view of what's actually causing these feelings, that it's your own mind, it's craving, desire, attachment. Wrong view would be to blame other people for the feelings that you're having. If you keep blaming other people, you'll never actually get to enlightenment. You'll never get to the real source of what's causing these feelings. That's why you haven't been able to solve it. You need to be able to break through it to be able to see what's actually causing these feelings. So practicing right view is to be able to look inward, to be able to see, what am I craving? What am I longing, yearning for here? So let's just say you showed up to the airport and you were checking in for your flight that's supposed to leave in 1 hour. And they say, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry, sir. You can't check in right now. Your flight's not leaving for another 3 hours. Your flight's delayed. Well, if you notice your anger and frustration coming up there, it's not the airline company that's causing that. That's the mind's craving. I want every airplane to take off on time, right? That's the mind's craving for permanence, especially the airplanes you're on. Everyone else's airplane can be late. You guys don't mind about that. But if your plane's taking off late, that's where the mind doesn't like that. So the mind's craving this permanence. So practicing right view would be to look inward and see, what am I craving? What am I longing, yearning for here? Instead of blaming the airline company or blaming other people, that anger and frustration isn't being caused by external factors. It's being caused by what's going on within your own mind. And this is where you can get to peace and joy. So there's other parts to the Eightfold Path here, but it all starts with right view. Because why would you ever do any work on the path to enlightenment to improve the condition of your own mind if you didn't understand it was your own mind that was causing these feelings? So that's why the Buddha starts his entire path with making sure you understand what is causing these feelings. Because then you understand the work to solve this is all internal. It's not changing the outside world. That's not where you're going to get to peace and joy. You've got to change the inner world. That's what's actually going to get you to peace and joy. So any questions that you guys would like to ask on the Four Noble Truths? Anything you guys would like to discuss? Yeah, go for it.
So something that I'm wondering is that I study psychology in children, and how can we correlate this teaching with things that have happened to somebody at an early stage of their life, traumatically speaking, something that might have been disturbing that stays with them? You can't just tell somebody like that to just detach and let it go, because that would just lead to repressed feelings, right? So
Sure.
how about somatically speaking?
Sure. So let's just say somebody as a child was sexually abused or physically abused, right? So this is an unfortunate situation that's occurring, but now as an adult, they're experiencing sadness or frustration or anger. What's happening there is their mind is holding on to this experience that happened in the past, and they're forming feelings based on it today. This is craving and clinging. Their mind was longing, yearning for something in the past to happen a certain way, and it didn't happen that way. So now in the present moment, they're experiencing anger and sadness and frustration, where you can train your mind to let that go. It's not a matter of just telling the person, let it go. It's a matter of helping them with the Eightfold Path, that they on their own need to choose to learn and practice the Eightfold Path. And now they can train their mind to let go. You're not suppressing your feelings, or you're not repressing your feelings. You're actually eliminating the causes and conditions that produce it. So this person who's in the present moment, clinging to this experience in the past and forming feelings today, they can let that go, understanding that, okay, this is what happened in the past, but that doesn't define who I am today as a person. And I don't have to have feelings based on that. I can understand that that thing happened, but not have feelings based on it. So this is what the mind can get to when it gets to peace and joy. This is training your mind to let go. But what people will tend to do is they will say this was trauma. And now they say that you can never eliminate this. This is not true because it's impermanent. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll remember that you had been abused as a child, sexually or physically or what have you, but you won't be forming feelings based on it in the present moment. You'll just have memories that it occurred, but your mind is no longer having feelings about that. You just understand that that's in the past. That's something that occurred. That's what happened. And now in the present moment, I don't have to feel sad. I don't have to feel happy. I just know that this is what happened. And now in the present moment, it doesn't define who I am as a person. And I can move on with my life and just be very peaceful and joyful. But the mind can't do that without this training, because it will cling and hold on to this. And now it will form feelings based on that. So it's the same thing. It's just a different thing that the mind's clinging to. Instead of clinging to this mobile phone, for example, wanting it to be permanent, and then when you lose it, when you misplace it, when it breaks, you get angry or frustrated. That's the craving for permanence. The same thing is true that in the past, they're craving for their past life or their past experience in this life to be a certain way. I didn't want that to occur. And now that it has occurred, the mind's not getting what it wants, which is to have a kind of magical childhood. And that's not what we experienced as a child. We experienced this abuse or what have you. And now the mind is not getting what it wants. So therefore it's experiencing the painful feelings. But we can understand that, hey, that was an impermanent situation. We were a child. We had no ability to affect whether that did or didn't occur to us. There were adults around us that chose to do these things to us, but now we're an adult and that stuff's not going to happen to us anymore because we make different choices and we have more wisdom that those things aren't going to happen to us. And now this person is taking their life back, and now they can go forward in life without the anger and frustration and sadness and everything else that kind of plagues their life. And they don't have to feel guilty and shameful that that occurred. They can just understand that it did occur, but now we're in a different point in our life and we can move on with happiness and joy. But the mind has to be trained to do that. You can't just tell somebody this and then magically they're going to switch. Their mind has to be rewired essentially. But each person needs to decide to do that work on their own. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Whenever we feel the unpleasant feeling, for example, like you are the married couple staying in the same house, and you want to stay very clean and tidy, but the other person is stay messy, then the house may be like smelling and bad feeling, right? But you don't like it. So it's like every day you have to face it. And there's two choice. One is that you clean the house, or another one is that you just let it be. So the smell is every day coming and you don't like it, then how to say, every day we have to cut off our mind. Okay, I like the pleasant, I don't like the smell, so that's why I feel angry. So need to be conscious all the time. So in the morning also need to be conscious. Next day also need to be conscious about this. So it's like very tiring things to face in everyday life. So that kind of everyday unpleasant feeling, how to overcome it.
There's a third option too, is you can have a different living situation, right? You don't need to live with that person. You're not required to live with that person. You can make different choices and experience different results. But just choosing to live with someone else isn't going to solve your problem. You may choose to continue to live with that person, or you might choose to leave, but just choosing to leave doesn't solve the problem, because the problem is inside the mind where you're craving permanence, right? So the thing that you're not interested in doing here is getting angry and frustrated and agitated, but your mind will get angry and agitated because you have a craving inside your mind. The other thing you're not interested in doing is putting expectations on this person that they should be a certain way, right? Now the mind's trying to pressure them to do things your way. So those options that you mentioned, where you either ignore it and just understand that this is the way the person is, and you just, okay, that's the way they're going to be, and you just need to train your mind. That's one option. The other option is you can clean it up yourself, right? The third option is that you could leave and choose to live with someone else. This is actually a very relevant thing. Like when I met my wife is Thai. She grew up very differently than me. She grew up in Eastern Thailand, and she grew up here in Chiang Mai. And she has a different way of living, right? I don't describe it as messy, because that's a negative perception that you're forming about this other person. It's just a different way, right? When I grew up in a way that I keep things in a certain place, and I know where everything is and this kind of thing. So we lived two very different lives, right? And then when we came together to live, we were doing things differently. So I needed to kind of not be so particular about where I wanted or expected things to be. And she needed to move a little bit towards the middle too. So I needed to come off of a little bit of what I was doing, and she needed to come off of a little bit of what she was doing, and we meet in the middle. And this is where we were able to find a middle for both of us. But there might be other situations where you can't find that middle. And the best thing to do is end the relationship and move on. But just understand that it's not going to actually solve your anger and frustration or whatever other feelings you have, because you got to get rid of that craving in your mind. And you can cut off and let go of a craving, but you can also fulfill it. That's one of the ways to eliminate a craving. So for example, let's just say I always wanted to go to the Philippines, and I've never been to the Philippines before. Well, I could realize that I don't have enough money and I can't travel to the Philippines, and I could cut that off and let it go and be like, nah, I'm not going to the Philippines. Or I could just go to the Philippines and check it out. And now I'll extinguish my craving having gone. But you have to watch over your mind, because now you're going to want to go to Tokyo and Beijing and other places like this, right? So you can fulfill a craving. So for example, my first wife, she was very quiet. She was a Thai woman as well. She was very quiet. She hardly ever talked. And I didn't realize it until we were together, because it wasn't until we got married that she was like that. Early on in our relationship, there was lots to talk about. But then after we were married, shortly thereafter, she became very quiet and she didn't talk at all. And I'm a very talkative person. And I got to a point, not just because of that, but because of other things, that we decided that we were going to end our relationship and move on, right? But now I had learned something about myself, that I was interested in having a partner that was more interested in talking and having conversations and stuff like that. So then with my current wife, who we've been together for 19 years and will be together for the rest of this life, she was much more talkative all the way through our relationship. But now that we've been together for 19 years, she doesn't really talk that much. We've had all the conversations we need to have. What else do we need to talk about? We've been talking for 19 years, right? So where I get my interest in talking with people is you guys, right? I talk with you guys, right? And now I get to talk. And now I'm just talking so much that it's like, okay, that craving's gone. I don't have a craving. Yeah. Yeah. That's not the reason. That's not the reason why I teach. I don't teach because I want to talk. I teach because I know these teachings lead exactly where the Buddha said they do. And I'm interested in seeing more and more people experience that. It's kind of like discovering the cure to cancer. and then you may be interested to give it away for everyone for free. So I know with 100% certainty these teachings lead exactly where he said they do, because I know what the condition of my mind was before, and I know what it is now, and now I'm interested in seeing more and more people experience that. But yeah, as part of the life that I've created, yeah, I talk all the time. In fact, I talk so much that it's kind of like, yeah, I'm fine just being quiet now. Where before I used to want to talk all the time, where now I talk and I enjoy talking, but I also enjoy being quiet. Where before I couldn't enjoy being quiet, where now I can actually enjoy being quiet because I've extinguished my craving to talk, right? Through fulfilling it. Yeah. So in your situation, you're going to either need to accept what's going on and just kind of ignore it. You're going to need to clean that up, or you're going to need to choose to live with someone else, because you've got to extinguish that craving. So even if you go choose to live with someone else, maybe this person, they're nice and tidy, they keep the house nice, but maybe they listen to music that you don't like. And now you're frustrated about that, right? So you've got to get rid of the craving in your mind. You're not going to solve the problem by just going to live with someone else, right? So you've got to be able to look at these kinds of things and decide what's best for you. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, the way I'm going to end our time together is just with something that I've already said as part of the class, is that what the teachings of the Buddha are is to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But what's hurting you is inside your own mind. It's not the outside world. There's plenty of unwise things that happen in the world, but that's not what's causing you to be angry or frustrated. You'll never get to peace trying to change other people. There's 8 billion people in the world. The Buddha didn't change everybody else and get everybody else to do things his way. Instead, he changed his mind. And then by him training his mind, he was able to get to peace and joy. There were times you can see in his original teachings where his students were arguing and frustrated and angry. And he was just so peaceful. He was just so joyful. And he just walked away and just left. Right? That's what you can do. You don't have to stand there and argue with people. You can just choose to walk away. But your craving won't let you do that. You want to sit there and argue, and you want to prove that you're right and they're wrong and these other things. So you can heal from what hurts you, but you need to know what is hurting you. It's inside one's own mind. And that's what the Buddhist teachings help you to be able to do, is heal from what hurts you so that you don't ever need to hurt ever again. Okay? So if you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you guys here in Chiang Mai, but also I live stream my classes. So you guys can learn no matter where you are in the world, either live or you can watch the recordings. The way that you do this is I have books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, quizzes that are all available at no cost from our website. There's also in-person and online classes, courses, and retreats. You'll find those on our website as well. We have these 2 ongoing programs. This one is each Sunday and Wednesday. This one is each Saturday. And you can gradually kind of learn little by little. The group learning program, is I take this first book and I go chapter by chapter in each Sunday. And then on Wednesdays, we do meditation and I just open up for questions. On Saturdays, this Pali Canon and English study group, we go through all the other volumes 2 through 13. So these are 2 ongoing programs. But starting like next week, for example, we have a course which is going Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., where you can learn all the foundational teachings to really get started on the path to enlightenment. And all of these things are available at no cost, even personal guidance, because it's one thing learning in class, but it's a whole other thing relating it to your day-to-day activities and your day-to-day situations. So students will learn in class, but then they'll schedule appointments with me, either online or in person, to be able to sit down and talk about their specific issues. So if you're ever interested in that, you can meet with me in person. If we're in the same town, we can just talk and message, and you can schedule an appointment with me and we'll meet somewhere. Or if you're online, you can just schedule online and then we'll meet in Zoom, and then I'll help you that way. And then there's a Facebook group as well where you can post questions and then I'll answer it. I'm the only person who answers your questions in that Facebook group. Other people might read your question and they will ask follow-up questions. It's kind of like an online classroom. And some people even go in there just to read other people's questions and read the answers that I give. So you could use it for that purpose as well. So these are all options for you to be able to learn and continue to explore this path if you're interested to heal from what hurt you. And it really starts with this first book. This is a book that you can download from our website for free. You can take it and go print it yourself. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can get it on Amazon if you have access to Amazon. And it's in English, it's in Spanish as well. Yeah, I have the Spanish version right there, but I can't teach in Spanish though. It's being translated into Chinese and German and a whole bunch of other languages as well, but they're not ready yet. But the English one is what I can teach. I can teach those. So yeah, this is how you get started. So I'll just end by thanking you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. If you guys would like to learn more, there's lots of opportunities for you to do that. You can see our bulletin board on our website. You'll see more details. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee-krap. Sawadee-krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.